Hello everyone, this is Chara, and we've received a new patch for Splatoon version 4.4.0, and I just want to real quick be going over all the changes. There wasn't too much, but there were some pretty interesting things being changed here, so I'm just going to go over them real quick so you can know what's going to be added. This patch will be dropping on February 23rd. So the first change that they list is that Splatershot is going to be painting its feet better. My guess is when it strafes to the side like this, it will be painting under sooner, because as you can see, when you strafe to the left, it paints your feet after you already strafe there, which means if you're strafing into enemy turf, you'll take damage, which can make it a big problem. So if it paints its feet right away, it can allow it to strafe a lot better without being punished. 52 is a weird Google Translate one to get through, but it seems like the shot radius when it impacts someone further away does more, like has a larger hitbox. So I'm guessing this just means the shots when they travel seem to lose radius size, and that'll be 20%, 27% larger. Something like that. Or it paints the floor better at max range. Something like that. Pretty minor. Dualies and Dapples get a buff, which is very interesting. For once, Dualies actually get changed. I'm going to find K-Dualies right here. Basically, just a small change. They have 5% less ink consumption, which means you just get to shoot for a little bit longer. Pretty useful for just not running out of ink as much. I think the rolls are the main thing that use a lot of ink, especially for the regular Dualies that use like 9% each. So I hope they buff the rolls to be less of an ink consumption as well. But for now, those are there. But that's the buffs. Now we got the nerfs. And the first one up is H3. They've actually very hard nerfed H3. H3 now has 25% more ink consumption, which means you basically have the equivalent of 75% of your ink tank than you would have normally. We also know from some math that after a suction bomb, you will get only 3 shots, whereas right now you get 6. You'll only get 3 bursts after a suction now. So H3 is going to be a lot more dependent on having to recover ink more. It still has good paint. It just can't paint as long. To me, I think this is just a theme with midline weapons to give them more downtime, like they've done with Bamboozler and CDS's ink efficiency. You won't be able to just, like, pre-fire in areas long and prevent people from approaching, because you'll run out of ink and have to recharge, and that gives shorter range weapons their chance to approach. I think this nerf is a little extra and kind of unnecessary, but yeah, I wouldn't mind it if it was like 10-15%, but 25 is a lot, so we'll have to see what happens. Next up is the Squeezer, which has received a similar kind of thing. The main weapon's tap shots are already fairly ink heavy. I can't mash all the way, so this would normally drain your tank faster. But what they've done is they made the auto fire mode take more ink as well by 20%, which I believe goes from around 118 to 98 shots. So the auto fire mode is not ink heavy at all, so it's like, I don't see this mattering. Like, as you can see, you can auto fire for a while, but I guess it's slightly less, so that's just what it is. And then the nerf we knew was coming was the CDS nerf. And then people were like, oh god, what is it? What is this? What are they going to do? Yeah, it's nothing. When you jump right now, you get more RNG on your shots, which they've basically increased this. You'll have 25% larger shot spread. So basically, when you jump, the main weapon is less accurate. However, Dualie Squelchers have a tech where you roll and jump, and you can see you get the kind of single reticle and faster fire rate thing with no RNG until it resets. That is unchanged. It's just jumping like this, which Dualie Squelcher players don't really do anyway, so it's kind of just a slap on the wrist. Dualie Squelchers are already, like, so good right now, I think they're gonna be fine. The other thing they did is they increased the points for special from this from 210 to 220, which, if anything, I think is just gonna make more people use the vanilla Squelcher kit, since sub-weapons aren't as important for it, and the missiles are 190. So, kind of effective, but not really. Next up, they nerfed Torpedo in the most minor way possible, and it's very obvious why they do this right after, but they have 8 more frames of kind of lag before you start recovering ink. So as you can see, you have this little white bar when you're recovering your ink tank. And when you have this white bar, you can't recover ink. It's just 8 frames longer of that before you can recover ink. And this is just supposed to be to reduce torpedo spam. So this is kind of an indirect nerf to torpedo weapons, but for Kensa Jr. and Kensa Undercover Brella, both of these weapons will be having their points for special reduced from 200 to 190. So it's just supposed to be kind of compensation for it. So K Jr. and Kunder will now be 190, but the torpedoes you can't spam as much, which since these two weapons throw a lot of torpedoes is supposed to make up for that. Just kind of makes them a bit faster at special, but a bit less sub-weapon spammy, which I like. Other torpedo weapons, yeah, this is going to hurt Dapple and Rapid, but barely. I don't think it's going to be very noticeable. I think these weapons are going to be fine. And lastly, they nerfed charger points for special, which they have done for the Firefin, which will now have it be 200p instead of 210. Sorry, 220p instead of 210. Sorry, charger players. So it'll take just a little bit longer to get your bomb rush than normal. The Ray Charger's already at 220. So if you played a Ray Charger, you probably know how this works by now. And E-Leader getting a points for special increase. I think this is just to keep it in line with Firefin, because Leader and Firefin are both very good in zones right now. So I think the idea is just, alright, if this thing's 170 and that thing's 210, maybe E-Leader will be played entirely over Firefin, so let's just increase it by 10 too. Leader is fine. MPU still allows it to paint way more than it does right now. And even then, even without MPU, E-Leader paints very well compared to Splat Charger. So it's just, I think Leader's still fine. I don't think either of these weapons are too heavily affected. Definitely hurts Firefin more, but both of these weapons are very strong, so they're fine. And yeah, the last things to note is they have fixed some stage glitches where you were allowed to kind of like jump off the wall faster than normal to get out of bounds, so it's an out of bounds glitch. And there will be another patch in future. The devs are still looking at the balance of the game. It does seem like these patches are going to be more spread out, because this patch happened after like 6 months when they've been around 4. So I'd expect it to be probably another 6 months before we get another patch again, but there probably will be more patches until the next game launches. So yeah, that's some basic balance changes. I don't think this patch drastically changes anything, but I think the idea of these changes are what should be noted. Typically, the kind of last few patches have been mid-range weapons are more ink-heavy and they have more downtime. Shorter-range weapons get to have a bit more mobility in terms of painting around to be able to approach. And then just toning down some things like special points have been upped a little bit recently, as well as something like CDS power. But yeah, let me know what you guys think of this, and I will see you guys in the next video.